A child invisible to the city's eyes delivers a handmade invitation and unknowingly ignites the spark that would forever change the fate of an unknown millionaire.
The New York City sky was never truly blue, thought Ryan as he observed the urban landscape from the 40th floor of the building where his company occupied 3 entire floors. At 37, Ryan Matthews was what many would call an absolute success. Ameritech, the startup he founded at 25 in a tiny apartment in Chelsea, was now worth billions and employed more than 500 people. His face appeared in business magazines, economics programs, and motivational speeches. "Mr. Matthews, the meeting with the Japanese investors is scheduled for 3 o'clock. Would you like me to move your lunch earlier?" Patricia's voice, his executive assistant, interrupted his thoughts through the intercom. "That won't be necessary, Patricia. I'm going out early today. I need to clear my head a little before this meeting." Patricia hesitated on the other end of the line. In 5 years working for Ryan, she had never heard him say he needed to clear his head. He was known for his almost obsessive dedication to work. "All right, sir. Should I reschedule any appointments?" "No. I'll be back in time." Ryan hung up and went back to contemplating the gray city. It wasn't just the sky that seemed colorless. There were days, increasingly frequent, when everything around him seemed to exist in shades of gray. The apartment on the Upper East Side, decorated by a renowned interior designer. The imported car driven by Mark, his driver for 8 years. The designer clothes perfectly fitted to his tall, slim body. He grabbed his coat and left, dismissing Mark's company with a discreet gesture. He wanted to walk alone, feel the July cold cut his face, perhaps find some real sensation amid the fog that seemed to envelop his existence. His steps automatically led him to Central Park, a green refuge in the heart of the country's most famous avenue. There, sitting on a worn wooden bench, Ryan allowed himself to be just an ordinary man, without the weight of the empire he had built, without the responsibilities he carried, without the memories he avoided. Grandma Celeste had passed away 3 years ago. A silent disease that progressed too quickly for any fortune to stop. She was his last link to the world that existed before Ameritech, before success, before loneliness disguised as independence. Since his parents departed when he was only 5, she had raised him with genuine affection in a simple house in the outskirts of Queens. "My little dreamer," she called him, even when he was already taller than her. After saying goodbye to Grandma Celeste, Ryan threw himself completely into work. It was easier to deal with spreadsheets and meetings than with the emptiness that awaited him at home. Friends, already scarce, drifted away in the face of his repeated cancellations. Romantic relationships never lasted more than a few months, always interrupted by unavoidable business trips or by his own emotional distance. "Excuse me, mister." Ryan blinked, confused. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he hadn't noticed someone approaching. He looked down and saw a small girl, couldn't be more than 6 years old. Her curly hair was tied in uneven pigtails, and she clutched a worn teddy bear as if it were an invaluable treasure. "Are you sad?" The direct question caught him by surprise. "I'm not sad," he answered automatically, adjusting his posture. "Why do you think that?" "Because you look at nothing just like my mom does when she's sad, but doesn't want me to see." The sincerity of that observation disconcerted him. Ryan wasn't used to being read so easily, especially by a child. "Is your mother nearby? You shouldn't talk to strangers." He looked around, concerned. "My mom's working over there." The girl pointed to a young woman selling coffee from an improvised cart at the park entrance. "She said I can't go far, but you looked very lonely." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. How could a child see what adults around him seemed incapable of perceiving? "What's your name?" he asked, softening his tone. "Lucy," she answered, hugging the bear against her chest. "And this is Eddie." "Eddie?" "My friend. He gets sad sometimes too, but I take care of him." Ryan felt an involuntary smile form on his lips. "Nice to meet you both, Lucy and Eddie." "I'm Ryan." "I know," she said simply. "What do you mean?" "My mom has an old magazine with your picture. She said you're important." Ryan felt a sudden discomfort. His anonymous refuge had been compromised. "Today's my birthday," Lucy continued, apparently oblivious to his discomfort. "I'm turning 7. "Congratulations," he replied, still disconcerted. Lucy took something from the pocket of her worn dress. It was a paper folded several times, decorated with colorful markers and faded stickers. "It's for you," she said, extending the paper. An invitation. Ryan took the paper carefully, as if it were a valuable document. Opening it, he read in shaky, colorful letters, "Birthday invitation, for the sad man on the bench." Today is my birthday. There will be pizza and a candle. You can come if you want. I'm Lucy. And at the end, in smaller letters, it will be behind the pharmacy near the subway by the warm wall. He felt something strange in his chest. A sensation he hadn't experienced for so long that he almost didn't recognize it. Genuine emotion. Lucy. A female voice came from the direction of the coffee cart. The woman was making nervous gestures for the girl to return. I have to go, Lucy said, taking a few steps back. Will you come to my party? Before Ryan could answer, she was already running toward her mother, with Eddie swinging on her arm. He watched as the woman knelt before her daughter, checking if she was okay, and then cast a suspicious look in his direction. Ryan looked at his wristwatch. He had exactly 1 hour and 20 minutes before the meeting with the Japanese investors. A meeting that could define the next phase of Ameritech's expansion into the Asian market. Months of preparation, meticulously elaborated financial projections, a presentation rehearsed to exhaustion. And then he looked again at the invitation in his hands. A crumpled piece of paper that, somehow inexplicably, seemed to weigh more than all the contracts he had ever signed. In that moment, under the gray New York sky, Ryan Matthews made a decision that would forever change the course of his life. He tucked the invitation into the inner pocket of his coat, stood up, and began walking toward the subway. Not to return to the office, but to find a pharmacy and a warm wall. Ryan descended the stairs of the 42nd Street station, blending into the crowd of hurried passers-by who ignored each other. For the first time in years, he wasn't compulsively checking his phone as he walked. Not even when the device vibrated insistently in his pocket, probably Patricia trying to locate him for the approaching meeting. Downtown Manhattan had colors and smells he hadn't noticed for a long time. Street vendors announced their products with powerful voices. Students laughed loudly in improvised circles on the sidewalks. Elderly people observed the movement from worn benches. A vibrant life that happened far from the antiseptic environments Ryan frequented. He had to ask 3 different people before finding the pharmacy mentioned in the invitation. It was a small establishment with a peeling sign and a closed for renovation notice on the main door. Next to it, a narrow alley separated the building from a popular clothing store. Ryan hesitated. His Italian shoes didn't match the irregular and slightly damp asphalt of that alley. His imported wool coat seemed absurdly out of place in that scenario. For a moment, the executive inside him screamed that this was madness, that he should return immediately to the office, that he had confused kindness with recklessness. But then he remembered Lucy's eyes. The disconcerting sincerity with which she had called him, sad man. And he continued walking. As he turned the corner, he saw it. A small awning protected a space no larger than 10 square meters. An overturned wooden crate served as a table, on which sat a closed pizza box. Next to it, a simple bakery cake with a single colorful candle still unlit. Lucy was sitting on a piece of cardboard spread on the ground, drawing with worn colored pencils, with Eddie faithfully by her side. And then Ryan saw the woman. She must have been around 30, but the weariness on her face suggested a much longer life. Curly hair like her daughter's, tied in an improvised bun. Small but visibly calloused hands. A simple, clean dress, though with some discreet patches. She was organizing some disposable cups, so concentrated that she didn't immediately notice his presence. It was Lucy who saw him first. You came. The girl jumped up with a smile that lit up her entire face. Mom, look. The sad man came to my party. The woman turned abruptly, and her entire body tensed upon seeing Ryan standing there, with his executive outfit and disconcerted expression. Instinctively, she positioned herself between the stranger and her daughter. Who are you? She asked, with a mixture of distrust and fear in her voice. Lucy tugged at the hem of her mother's dress. It's Ryan, Mom. I gave him the invitation, remember? Lucy, I told you not to talk to strangers, the woman whispered without taking her eyes off Ryan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you, Ryan said, keeping his distance. Your daughter gave me this today in the park. He showed the crumpled invitation. I thought, well, I'm not exactly sure what I thought. The woman studied his face for a few seconds as if trying to assess his intentions. Ryan felt strangely vulnerable under that direct gaze. You really are that businessman from the magazines, aren't you? She finally asked. Yes, I suppose I am. And you really came to a birthday party in an alley? The incredulity was evident in her voice. Before Ryan could respond, Lucy interjected. Mom, you said I could invite whoever I wanted. And he looked like he needed pizza. The sincerity of that statement broke the tension of the moment. The woman let a reluctant smile escape, and Ryan felt his own lips curve in response. "Maria," she finally said, extending her hand. "I'm Maria Sanchez." "Ryan Matthews," he replied, briefly shaking her hand. He noticed the calluses on her fingertips, so different from his own soft executive hands. "I know who you are," Maria retorted, withdrawing her hand. "What I don't know is why you're here." It was a fair question for which Ryan had no answer. At least not one that made sense. "May I at least offer a piece of cake?" he tried, feeling absurdly inadequate. Lucy clapped, enthusiastic. "Yes. And then we can show you our warm wall." Maria hesitated, but her daughter's enthusiasm seemed to soften her distrust. "All right. But we won't stay long. It'll be dark soon." The next few minutes passed in a strange combination of discomfort and simplicity. Lucy chattered incessantly, telling Ryan about her day at the public school she attended when possible, about Eddie and his imaginary adventures, about how she loved to draw. Maria remained vigilant, responding with monosyllables when Ryan tried to make conversation, always keeping her eyes on her daughter. The pizza was cold and the soda warm, served in disposable plastic cups. The cake was simple, a sponge cake with chocolate frosting. But there was something in that improvised celebration that deeply touched Ryan. Lucy's genuine joy as she blew out the single candle. The care with which Maria cut perfectly equal slices for everyone. The total absence of pretension or falsity. "Why do you call it a warm wall?" Ryan asked when Lucy mentioned the place for the third time. Maria seemed embarrassed, but Lucy answered promptly, "Because it stays warm even when it's cold. Come see." The girl took his hand without ceremony and pulled him to the back of the alley. There, leaning against the back wall of the pharmacy, was a small space protected from the wind. Lucy placed Ryan's hand against the wall. "See? Warm." Ryan felt the heat emanating from the bricks. "It's the pharmacy's heating system," he explained. "The heat escapes through the walls. We sleep here sometimes," Lucy continued innocently. "When it's very cold or raining a lot. It's like having a giant blanket." Ryan felt his heart tighten. He looked at Maria, who was watching the scene with a mixture of shame and defiance in her gaze. "We don't need your pity," she said quietly, when Lucy moved away to show her drawings to Eddie. "It's not pity," Ryan responded, surprised by his own sincerity. "It's admiration." Maria raised an eyebrow, incredulous. "You've raised an amazing girl," he continued. "Kind, perceptive, generous. In circumstances that I can't even imagine." A silence settled between them. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was a silence full of unformulated questions, of realities that collided. "She has this habit," Maria finally said, "of adopting people. Especially those who seem lost." She looked directly into his eyes. "Is that what she saw in you? Someone lost?" The question hit Ryan like a punch to the stomach. He, who spent his days guiding entire teams, who made decisions that impacted hundreds of lives, who was considered one of the most visionary leaders in the market. Lost? His phone vibrated again. This time he took it from his pocket. 15 missed calls from Patricia. 3 urgent messages from the financial director. The meeting with the Japanese had started 20 minutes ago. "I need to go," he said, putting the phone away. "I have an important meeting." Maria nodded, unsurprised. "Of course. Thank you for coming." Lucy ran up to them with a drawing in her hand. "I made this for you," she said, handing the paper to Ryan. It was a simple drawing, 3 stick figures under what appeared to be a roof. "It's us. Me, you, and Mom at our warm wall." Ryan took the drawing carefully, feeling something strange in his throat. "Thank you, Lucy. It's beautiful. Will you come back tomorrow?" The hope in her voice was palpable. Before Ryan could answer, Maria gently intervened. "Lucy, Mr. Ryan has a busy life. We can't ask that of him." Ryan looked at the two of them. The girl who had seen beyond his facade of success. The mother who was raising an extraordinary child in impossible conditions. And something inside him, something that had been dormant for a long time, began to awaken. "Maybe," he said, surprising himself. "Maybe I'll come back." As he walked away, he felt the weight of the drawing in his coat pocket. Lighter than a sheet of paper, heavier than all the $1 million contracts he had ever signed. Ryan entered the meeting room 45 minutes late, with slightly disheveled hair and without his usual presentation file in hand. The Japanese executives stared at him with indecipherable expressions, while Patricia tried to disguise her panic with forced smiles. "Gentlemen, I apologize for the delay," Ryan said, adjusting his tie. "I had an unavoidable contingency." The meeting proceeded mechanically. Ryan presented numbers, graphs, and projections he knew by heart, but his mind constantly wandered to the alley, to the warm wall, to Lucy's sincere eyes, to Maria's calloused hands. "Matthews-san, you seem distracted today," observed Tanaka, the leader of the Japanese delegation, when the meeting finally ended. Ryan hesitated. Under other circumstances he would have denied it. He would have reassumed the mask of professional perfection he had cultivated for years. But something had changed. "Yes, I am," he admitted. "Today I met people who made me question many things." Surprisingly, Tanaka smiled. "Questioning is the seed of transformation. This pleases me more than your usual calculated perfection." When everyone left, Patricia entered the room, visibly concerned. "Ryan, is everything okay? I've never seen you like this in 5 years." "I don't know, Patricia," he answered honestly. "I really don't know." That night, in his impeccable and empty apartment, Ryan couldn't sleep. He took Lucy's drawing from his pocket and placed it on the coffee table in the living room. 3 stick figures under a roof. An improvised family. The word hit him with force. Family. Something he hadn't had since Grandma Celeste's departure. Something he had replaced with professional achievements and material possessions. The next morning, Ryan woke up before the alarm. He dressed in simple clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, pieces he rarely wore, and drove his own car downtown. He parked a few blocks from the pharmacy and walked the rest of the way with a bakery bag in hand. But the alley was empty. No sign of Lucy or Maria. Just the wall, still slightly warmed by the pharmacy's system. Ryan waited for almost an hour, sitting on an abandoned crate. Several people passed by, some casting curious glances at the man obviously out of place in that environment. Some children played at the end of the street, but none was Lucy. He returned the next day. And the next. Always at the same time, always with some food in the bag. Always finding only emptiness. On the 4th day, as he walked dejectedly back to his car, Ryan saw a poster pasted on a pole. It was an announcement about vacancies in a temporary shelter in the Lower East Side, for families in street situations. In the poster, a photo of a woman served meals to smiling children. It wasn't Maria, but something in that image made him change direction. The shelter was in an old building with peeling paint and windows protected by bars. A line of people waited on the sidewalk for the community lunch. "May I help you?" asked an elderly woman with gray hair, when Ryan approached the entrance. "I'm looking for someone," he answered hesitantly. "A woman named Maria and her daughter Lucy. They're about 30 and 7 years old, curly hair." The woman observed him with suspicion. "And you are?" "A friend," Ryan answered, realizing how strange that sounded. They were living near a pharmacy in the Midtown area, but I haven't found them for a few days. "I don't know any Maria or Lucy," the woman answered, crossing her arms. "And even if I did, I couldn't give information about our assisted persons." Ryan understood the protection. He took a business card from his pocket. "I understand your caution. But if by chance they appear, could you give them my contact? I'm really worried." The woman took the card reluctantly, read the name, and widened her eyes. "You're Ryan Matthews? From Ameritech?" "Yes." "What does a businessman like you want with people in street situations?" The question was fair but difficult to answer. How to explain something that even he didn't completely understand? "Let's say Lucy gave me a lesson worth more than any MBA," he answered simply. In the following days, Ryan established an unlikely routine. In the morning, he conducted meetings and made corporate decisions. In the afternoon, he visited shelters, social assistance centers, and NGOs around the city, always with the same question. Did anyone know Maria and Lucy? At Ameritech, rumors spread. The perfectionist CEO now left early, refused evening commitments, and seemed strangely distracted. Some speculated about health problems, others about a secret romance. No one imagined that Ryan Matthews, the man who had built a technological empire, was roaming the streets of New York in search of a child who had called him sad man. On the 7th day of searching, when he was beginning to lose hope, Ryan received a call. "Mr. Matthews? This is Mrs. Johnson from New Beginnings Shelter in the Lower East Side." His heart accelerated. "Yes." "You left your card asking about a Maria and a Lucy." "Yes, did you find them?" "Not exactly, but a volunteer here knows a young woman with that name. She said she usually works washing dishes at the community restaurant in Union Square on Tuesdays and Thursdays." It was Tuesday. Ryan looked at the clock. Almost noon. "Thank you very much, Mrs. Johnson." "Thank you so much." He canceled all his meetings for the day, ignoring Patricia's protests, and drove to Union Square. The community restaurant operated in the basement of a century-old church. A line of people in vulnerable situations patiently waited for the subsidized lunch. Ryan entered through the back door, following the guidance of a janitor. The kitchen was a cramped and hot environment, where about 10 people worked at an accelerated pace. And there she was, Maria, with her hair tucked under a cap, washing huge pots in an industrial sink. Her face was flushed from the steam and drops of sweat ran down her neck. Lucy was sitting in a corner, drawing in a used school notebook with Eddie faithfully by her side. It was she who saw him first again. Ryan. The girl dropped her pencil and ran toward him, hugging his legs with surprising strength for someone so small. Maria turned abruptly, dropping foam on the floor. Her eyes widened upon seeing Ryan standing there, with Lucy clinging to him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice oscillating between surprise and distrust. "Looking for you," he answered simply. "I went back to the alley every day." "We need to change places sometimes," Maria explained, drying her hands on the apron. "It's not safe to stay in the same place for too long." Lucy looked up without releasing Ryan's legs. "Did you bring more pizza?" He smiled. "Not today. But can we have lunch together?" Maria seemed divided. "I'm working. In exchange for lunch for Lucy and me." "How much longer until you finish?" "About 20 minutes, maybe." "I can wait." Ryan crouched down to Lucy's height. "Meanwhile, can you show me your drawings?" The girl nodded enthusiastically and pulled him to the corner where she was sitting. Maria observed them for a few moments before returning to work, but Ryan noticed that she looked in his direction every few minutes. Lucy showed Ryan her drawing notebook. Page after page of colorful figures, imaginary houses, fantastic animals, and people. Many people. "Who are all these?" he asked, pointing to a page where dozens of stick figures clustered together. "They're my friends," Lucy answered naturally. "Some real, some pretend. This is John from the bakery who sometimes gives me yesterday's bread. This is Mrs. Wilson who takes care of the cats. This is Mr. Franklin who tells stories in the square." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. Lucy's ability to create connections, to see humanity in each person who crossed her path, was extraordinary, especially considering the precariousness of her own life. "And is this me?" he asked, pointing to a taller stick figure dressed in blue. "Yes. Your mom's new friend." "Your mom's friend?" "Yeah. She tore your picture from the magazine and kept it in her purse. I think she likes you." Ryan felt his face heat up. Lucy continued showing the drawings, oblivious to the impact of her words. 20 minutes later, Maria approached, already without the apron and with her hair loose. She was visibly uncomfortable. "Lucy exaggerates sometimes," she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. "About things she imagines." Ryan smiled. "We all need a little imagination to move forward, don't we?" Maria finally faced him, surprised by the response. For a moment, the distrust in her eyes gave way to something softer. "Are we going to eat here?" Lucy asked, breaking the moment. "Actually," Ryan replied, "I thought we could go to a special place. If your mom allows, of course." Maria frowned. "What place?" "There's a restaurant near here. Nothing too fancy," he quickly added, noticing her expression. "But the food is good, and there's a space for children." "Please, Mom," Lucy begged, jumping with excitement. "Can we take Eddie too?" Maria hesitated, looking from Ryan to her daughter. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly while Lucy hugged Eddie, preparing him for the outing. Ryan thought for a moment. "Because for the first time in a long time I feel alive." The answer seemed to surprise her. Maria studied his face for a few seconds, as if looking for signs of falsity or ulterior motives. Finally she nodded. "All right. But just today." As they walked out of the community restaurant, Lucy held Ryan's hand naturally, swinging Eddie in her other arm. Maria walked a little behind, observing the interaction with a mixture of caution and curiosity. None of the three could imagine that that lunch would be just the beginning of a journey that would transform their lives forever. The lunch at the small family restaurant stretched for almost 2 hours. Lucy was enchanted with the children's area and quickly made friends with other children, while Ryan and Maria remained at the table, initially in an awkward silence that gradually transformed into hesitant conversation. "She's never had so many toys at her disposal," Maria commented, watching her daughter slide down a small colorful slide. "Or so many children to play with." "Lucy seems to make friends easily," Ryan observed. "Yes," Maria smiled slightly. "It's a gift. Sometimes I think it's her defense against everything we've faced." Ryan wanted to ask about their past, about how they had reached that situation, but he feared crossing still fragile boundaries. Instead he commented, She's an extraordinary child. Intelligent, perceptive, empathetic. I try to give her what I can, Maria responded, a slight tremor in her voice. Books from the public library. Stories before bed even when we're in difficult places. I insist that she attend school whenever possible. You're an amazing mother, Ryan said sincerely. Maria let out a bitter laugh. An amazing mother wouldn't let her daughter sleep in alleys or eat leftovers. An amazing mother is one who, even in the worst circumstances, preserves her daughter's humanity and dignity, he responded. Lucy is proof of that. Maria's eyes shone with contained tears. She looked away as if ashamed of this vulnerability. Why are you doing this, Ryan? What do you want from us? The question hung between them, loaded with distrust and past experiences that Ryan didn't know. I don't want anything, he answered after a few moments of reflection. Or maybe I want something I lost a long time ago. Connection. Meaning. I can't explain it. Maria studied him, looking for falsehood in his words. People like you don't mix with people like us without a reason. People like me? Rich. Powerful. With perfect lives. Ryan smiled sadly. My life is far from perfect, Maria. It's just empty. Something in the sincerity of that confession seemed to touch Maria. The silence that followed was different from the previous ones. More contemplative than defensive. That lunch was the first of many meetings. In the following weeks, Ryan developed a surprising routine. 3 times a week he would meet Maria and Lucy in previously agreed locations. Sometimes he would bring food to share in the park. Other times they would stroll through the cultural center or visit free exhibitions. Always simple activities, respecting Maria's reluctance to accept direct help. He never asked where they slept or how they spent the days when they didn't see each other. He respected Maria's fierce pride, understanding that her trust was a fragile treasure that needed to be patiently cultivated. Lucy, on the other hand, gave herself to friendship with Ryan without reservations. She would tell him elaborate stories about Eddie and her other imaginary friends. She would show him increasingly complex drawings. She would ask him to read stories with different voices for each character, laughing merrily at his awkward attempts. In one of these meetings, while Lucy played with other children in a square, Maria finally shared fragments of her story. It wasn't always like this, she said, looking at a distant point. I had a normal life before. Family, home, job as an administrative assistant. Everything changed when I got pregnant with Lucy. Ryan just listened, giving her space to continue. Her father disappeared as soon as he found out. My family turned their backs. They were very religious, didn't accept an unmarried pregnant daughter. I lost my job when the company reduced staff. I tried other jobs, but with a baby, it's complicated. She took a deep breath before proceeding. I held on with my savings for almost 2 years. Then it was a gradual fall. First, a smaller apartment. Then a tenement. Then temporary shelters. And finally, the street, Ryan completed softly. Maria nodded. I've tried to start over so many times. I get temporary jobs, save some money, rent a room. But something always happens. I get sick, Lucy needs medicine, the rent increases. And we're back to square one. Ryan felt a mixture of anger and impotence. How could a society that produced so much wealth let people like Maria and Lucy fall through the cracks of the system? Let me help, he asked, not for the first time. I don't want your charity, Ryan. It's not charity. It's reciprocity. Lucy gave me something I can't explain. Something that all the money in the world couldn't buy. Maria looked at him for a long time, a visible battle happening in her eyes. Before she could respond, they were interrupted by a shout. Mom? Ryan. Look what I found. Lucy was running toward them, holding something in her hands. It was a kitten, tiny and trembling, with gray fur and eyes still half closed. It was under the bench, alone. Can we keep it? Please? Maria sighed. Lucy, you know we can't have animals in our situation. The girl's eyes filled with tears. But it will die alone. How would Eddie feel if no one took care of him? Ryan observed the scene, feeling his heart tighten. This child, who had so little, still found room in her heart to worry about an abandoned kitten. I can take it, he offered impulsively. Lucy and Maria looked at him, surprised. Do you have a cat? Lucy asked, eyes shining. No, I've never had animals. But I can learn to take care of this one. And will you let us visit it? The hope in her voice was palpable. Ryan hesitated, looking at Maria. Actually, I was thinking, maybe you could visit my apartment someday. To see how it's adapting. The invitation hung in the air, loaded with implications. It wasn't just about a kitten, It was about trust, about letting Ryan enter a little more into their lives. Maria seemed about to refuse when Lucy sneezed strongly. Once, twice, 3 times in a row. "Lucy, are you okay?" she asked, worried, touching her daughter's forehead. "You're hot." The girl sneezed again. "I'm cold, Mom." Ryan noticed that, despite the mild day, Lucy was shivering slightly. Her nose was red and her eyes watery. "Looks like a cold," he commented, concerned. "Maybe we should take her to a doctor." "We don't have health insurance," Maria responded, hugging her daughter. "I'll take her to the clinic tomorrow." "But she needs a warm place to spend the night," Ryan insisted. "Maria, please. My apartment has vacant rooms. Just for tonight." Maria bit her lip, divided between her pride and concern for her daughter. Lucy coughed, a harsh sound that seemed to decide the question. "Just tonight," she finally agreed. "And we take the kitten." Ryan's apartment on the Upper East Side seemed to belong to another world. The uniformed doorman, the mirrored elevator, the silent corridors. Everything contrasted violently with the environments that Maria and Lucy were used to. "Do you live here alone?" Lucy asked, wide-eyed, as she explored the spacious living room with elegant furniture and artwork on the walls. "Yes," Ryan answered, suddenly aware of the emptiness of the place. "Just me." "It's too big for one person," the girl observed with the typical sincerity of children. Maria remained near the door, visibly uncomfortable. "We shouldn't be here." "Please make yourself at home," Ryan said, indicating the couch. "I'll prepare the guest room for you." As he arranged clean sheets and soft towels, he could hear Lucy coughing in the living room. When he returned, he found Maria measuring her daughter's temperature with her hand, a worried expression. "I think the fever is increasing," she murmured. Ryan touched Lucy's forehead. "It was too hot. I'll call a doctor." "We don't need, Maria," he interrupted her gently. "Please. Let me do this." Something in the urgency of his voice convinced her. She nodded silently. An hour later, a private doctor was examining Lucy in the guest room. The diagnosis: pneumonia in early stage. He prescribed antibiotics, antipyretics, and absolute rest for at least a week. "She needs to stay in a heated environment with reinforced nutrition," the doctor explained, storing his instruments. "And no exposure to cold or humidity." After the doctor left, Maria collapsed in a chair, face in hands. "How am I going to manage this?" "How?" Ryan sat beside her. "Stay here. For as long as necessary." "We can't." "Why not?" "Because." Maria hesitated, the words escaping. "Because I don't want to get used to something I can't maintain. Because I don't want Lucy to become attached to things that will later be taken from her. We've lost enough, Ryan." "I'm not offering temporary charity," he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "I'm offering a partnership. A chance for all of us." Maria stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I want to help you start over. For real. A decent apartment. A stable job for you. A good school for Lucy. Not as a handout but as an investment in your future." "What? Why would you do that?" Ryan took a deep breath, organizing thoughts that were only now crystallizing in his mind. "Because before I met you, I had success but I had no purpose. I had achievements but I had no real connections. Lucy showed me what was missing, and you showed me a strength that I deeply admire." Maria looked away, silent tears streaming down her face. "I'm afraid, Ryan. Afraid to trust and be abandoned again. Afraid to give Lucy hope and see it destroyed." Ryan took her hands between his. "I can't promise that everything will be perfect. But I can promise that I'm not entering this on impulse or pity. I'm entering because, somehow that I don't completely understand, you two filled a void that I didn't even know existed." From the bedroom came the sound of Lucy's cough, followed by a weak meow from the kitten that now rested in an improvised box with blankets. "Just tonight," Maria repeated, but her voice no longer carried the same conviction. While she went to check on Lucy, Ryan stayed in the living room, observing the illuminated city through the panoramic window. For years, that view had been just a backdrop for his lonely existence. Now, with Maria and Lucy under his roof, the apartment finally began to feel like a home. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Patricia. "Meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Board wants explanations about your absences." Ryan turned off the device without responding. For the first time in his career, Ameritech was not his top priority. Tomorrow he would deal with the board, with expectations, with demands. That night, all that mattered was in his guest room. A girl with fever, an exhausted mother, and a rescued kitten. He didn't immediately realize it, but something fundamental had changed within him. Ryan Matthews, the perfectionist and lonely executive, was slowly giving way to a more human and connected version of himself. And it had all begun with a simple invitation written with colorful markers. A week turned into 2. Lucy's pneumonia improved, but the doctor recommended additional caution. The kitten, now christened Popcorn, because it's gray but has white spots like popcorn, Lucy had explained, was adapted to the apartment and already had its own bed, toys, and a growing collection of colorful bows that the girl insisted on putting around its neck. Maria tried to keep the boundaries clear. "We need to find our own place soon," she would say almost daily, more to herself than to Ryan. However, her defenses gradually diminished. She no longer sat rigidly on the edge of the couch. She no longer kept her few clothes carefully folded in the backpack every night. She no longer immediately refused when Ryan suggested buying something for Lucy. On a sunny August morning, while Lucy played with popcorn on the glass-enclosed balcony, Ryan made a proposal he had been planning for days. "I have an empty apartment in Brooklyn," he said casually while preparing coffee for them. "It was my grandmother's. It's been closed for years." Maria looked up from the magazine she was leafing through. "Why are you telling me this?" "I thought maybe you could use it. Temporarily," he quickly added, seeing her expression. "Until you find something definitive." Maria slowly closed the magazine. "Ryan. It's not charity," he insisted, sitting in front of her. "Actually, it would be a favor to me. The place has been closed for so long that it needs life. Dying plants, accumulating dust. You don't need to invent excuses." "I'm not inventing. It's really a problem. And I don't have time to take care of another property." Maria bit her lip, thoughtful. "And how much rent do we pay?" Ryan hesitated. He didn't want to charge anything, but he knew she wouldn't accept a completely free offer. "How about a symbolic amount? While you find a stable job." "I want to pay the fair value. No less than that." Her determination was something he deeply admired. "We can check the average rent in the area and establish something reasonable. But, Maria, I don't want you to overburden yourself. The important thing is that Lucy has stability." Upon hearing her name, the girl entered the kitchen with popcorn in her arms. "Are we talking about me?" Ryan smiled. "We're talking about a new place for you to live." Lucy's eyes widened. "Are we leaving? But what about popcorn?" "You can take popcorn," Ryan quickly responded, noticing the panic in her voice. "And I'll visit you. Or you can visit me here. We won't be far." The girl seemed to ponder this, petting the kitten thoughtfully. "Do you promise we won't disappear? Like the other people?" The innocent question hit Ryan like a punch. How many times had this child formed bonds only to see them dissolved by the unpredictable flow of life on the streets? "I promise, Lucy. We won't disappear from each other." Maria observed the interaction with a complex expression. There was fear there, but also something new, a cautious hope that was beginning to form. "Can we see the apartment first?" she finally asked. The next day Ryan took them to Brooklyn. Grandma Celeste's apartment was a simple but cozy 3-bedroom, in a building without luxuries but well-maintained. Although closed for years, it maintained the warmth of a true home, in the faded floral curtains, in the picture frames still on the furniture, in the worn books on the shelf. Lucy ran from room to room, exploring every detail with enthusiasm. "Look, Mom. There's a balcony with plants. And look at these books." Maria walked more slowly, touching objects with reverence, as if feeling the presence of the former resident. She stopped in front of a photograph on the wall, an elderly woman with white hair hugging a boy of approximately 10 years old. "Is that you?" she asked, pointing to the boy. Ryan nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "And my grandmother, Celeste. She raised me since I was 5 when I lost my parents." Maria looked at him with new understanding. "You also know loss." It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. "Yes. Different types of it." A comprehensive silence established between them. It was no longer the awkward silence of the first meetings, but something deeper, a mutual recognition of shared pain. "This place has many memories for you," Maria observed. "Are you sure you want other people here?" "They're not other people," Ryan responded with softness. "They're you? And yes, I'm sure. I think Grandma Celeste would approve." A week later Maria and Lucy officially moved in. Ryan hired a cleaning company to prepare the apartment, but resisted the impulse to renovate everything or buy new furniture. He understood that Maria needed to make that space hers, in her way, in her time. The first days were of adjustments. Lucy adapted quickly, enchanted with the stability of having her own room for the first time in years. Maria, on the other hand, always seemed alert, as if expecting everything to disappear at any moment. "I'm going to look for a job tomorrow," she announced one night, while they dined in the apartment. Ryan now dined with them at least 3 times a week. "I saw some administrative assistant vacancies in the newspaper." "Actually," Ryan began hesitantly, "remember Clara, my marketing director? Her department needs someone with customer service experience. I thought that maybe—" Maria frowned. "I don't want charity disguised as a job, Ryan." "It's not that," he assured. "Clara doesn't even know about our friendship. I mentioned that I knew someone looking for reemployment, that's all. She asked for your resume. The rest depends on your interview and qualifications." Maria still seemed skeptical. "I don't have appropriate clothes for a corporate interview. I can lend you some." Lucy intervened excitedly, making the adults laugh. "That can be resolved," Ryan said. "The important thing is, do you want to try?" After a moment of reflection, Maria nodded. "I want to. Thank you." The interview was scheduled for the following week. Ryan deliberately kept himself distant from the process, asking Clara to treat Maria as any other candidate. On the day, he took Lucy to the zoo for a walk to distract both of them during the interview. "You like my mom, don't you?" Lucy asked abruptly as they watched the monkeys. Ryan choked on the ice cream he was eating. "What do you mean?" "You look at her the same way the prince looks at the princess in stories," the girl explained naturally. "And her cheeks get red when you're around. Your mom and I are friends, Lucy." "Adults are complicated," she sighed dramatically, turning her attention back to the monkeys. When they returned to the Brooklyn apartment, they found Maria in a state of contained euphoria. She had gotten the job, not exactly what Ryan had suggested, but as an assistant in the company's social responsibility area, a new department that Ameritech was developing. "Clara said my life experience would bring a valuable perspective to the project," Maria explained, still seeming not to fully believe it. "The salary is good, there are benefits, health insurance for me and Lucy." "That's wonderful," Ryan exclaimed, genuinely happy for her. "Now we'll be able to pay real rent," she added, her pride evident. In the following weeks, a new routine was established. Maria worked at Ameritech on a different floor from Ryan's by mutual choice. Lucy began attending a school near the apartment. Ryan maintained his regular visits, bringing small gifts that he knew Maria wouldn't refuse. A book for Lucy, plants for the balcony, special ingredients for them to cook together. The apartment was gaining new life. The faded curtains gave way to others chosen by Maria, still floral in a silent tribute to Grandma Celeste. Lucy's drawings decorated the refrigerator. Popcorn had its favorite places scattered throughout the house. On a rainy September night, while Lucy was already asleep, Maria and Ryan talked on the small balcony, protected from the drizzle and warmed by the tea they shared. "I never thought my life would change so much in so little time," Maria confessed, looking at the illuminated city. "Sometimes I'm afraid to wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's not a dream," Ryan responded. "You built this. Your effort, your courage. With considerable help," she smiled. "I still don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to. You've given me much more than I could ever repay." Maria looked at him with curiosity. "What could we possibly have given to someone like you?" Ryan contemplated the question, seeking the right words. "Purpose. Connection. Before you, I existed. Now, I feel like I'm living." A comfortable silence established between them. The rain intensified outside, creating a water curtain that isolated that small space from the rest of the world. "I'm thinking of creating a foundation," Ryan finally said, "for families in vulnerable situations. Not just donations but real support, transitional housing, professional training, psychological counseling." Maria smiled. "Lucy really changed you." "You both changed me," he corrected. "And the idea is for you to lead the project. If you want, of course." "Me? Who better? You've lived it. You know the real needs, the true challenges. You have the necessary sensitivity and strength." Maria looked at him with a new intensity. "Why are you doing all this, Ryan?" "The truth." He held her gaze. "Because I fell in love." The words came out before he could contain them, surprising them both. "Not just with you," he continued, feeling he needed to explain, "but with Lucy. With the person I am when I'm with you. With the family we've formed, even if informally." Maria didn't respond immediately. Her eyes shone with unshed tears. "I'm afraid," she finally confessed. "To trust. To depend. To believe I can have something like this." "Me too," Ryan admitted. "But maybe we can be afraid together." Slowly, as if testing unknown waters, Maria approached. Her hand found his on the table. They didn't need words for what came next. A delicate kiss, hesitant, full of cautious promises and newly discovered hopes. When they separated, both were smiling. It wasn't a happy ending, it was a beginning. A beginning built on shared losses, unexpected encounters, and the wisdom of a child who knew instinctively that the sad man on the bench needed a home as much as they did. A year passed since their first meeting in Central Park. Autumn was once again coloring New York with golden and orange hues, and a cool breeze announced the changing seasons. In the Brooklyn apartment, now officially purchased in Maria's name, a small revolution was happening. "Mom, Ryan said I could have 50 balloons but you only bought 20. Lucy protested while adjusting the paper crown on her head. At newly turned 8 years old, she maintained the same contagious energy, but now her clothes were always clean and well cared for, her hair properly combed, although she still insisted on uneven pigtails as a matter of personal style. 50 balloons won't fit in this living room, Lucy," Maria responded patiently, placing another plate on the decorated table. "And I don't believe Ryan actually said that." "Well, maybe it was 15, the girl admitted with a mischievous smile. "But they seemed like 50 in my imagination." Popcorn, now an adult cat and considerably fatter, observed the party preparations with moderate interest from atop the bookshelf. The apartment had been completely transformed over the past year. The walls boasted a combination of family photographs, some old ones rescued from Grandma Celeste's belongings, others new, recording moments of the three together, and artwork created by Lucy, now framed as valuable pieces. The doorbell rang and Lucy ran to answer, already knowing who it would be. Ryan entered carrying an enormous and poorly wrapped box, clearly packaged by himself with colorful paper and excessive ribbons. "Happy actual birthday," he exclaimed, putting the package on the floor to receive Lucy's effusive hug. 8 years is a very important age, did you know? "Why?" she asked, already attacking the wrapping. "Because 8 lying down is the symbol for infinity. It means your possibilities are infinite." Maria observed the scene from the kitchen, a soft smile on her lips. Ryan had changed as much as they had over that year. The impeccable suits gave way to more comfortable clothes on weekends. The phone, previously an extension of his hand, now frequently remained forgotten in some drawer during visits. The perfect executive had learned to make pancakes on Sundays, to fix broken toys, to invent crazy stories at bedtime. "Need any help there?" he asked, approaching after Lucy dove into the box, which contained what appeared to be a telescope. "I think everything's under control," Maria replied, allowing herself to be embraced from behind. "But you're late." Last-minute meeting with investors. They're a bit nervous about the changes in the company. The changes Ryan referred to were substantial. In recent months, Ameritech had redirected a significant portion of its resources to social impact projects. The New Beginnings Foundation, envisioned by Ryan and led by Maria, already served dozens of families in situations similar to what they had faced. The innovative model, which combined temporary housing with professional training and continuous support, was beginning to gain national recognition. "Still bothered by the drop in stock?" Maria asked, concerned. "The stocks are recovering," Ryan reassured. "And the new investors, those who align with our social vision, are more than compensating for those who left. By the way, that reporter from Forbes confirmed the interview for next week. They want to highlight the foundation's work." Maria nodded, still not completely comfortable with the media exposure that her work was beginning to attract. "As long as they don't mention our personal story." "Just what we agreed on," he guaranteed. "The focus will be on the operation model and the results." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Patricia, the former assistant and now operational director of Ameritech, and her husband. In the previous months, Maria's social circle had gradually expanded, including some work colleagues and neighbors from the building. For Lucy, making friends was never a problem. Her magnetic personality attracted children and adults alike. Soon the apartment was full. Children ran between rooms, adults chatted in small groups, and popcorn had strategically taken refuge under Lucy's bed. The birthday party wasn't luxurious, but it had something that Ryan had never found in the high-standard social events he used to attend: authenticity. At one point, as everyone sang happy birthday around the cake, decorated with colorful stars and a miniature of Eddie, Lucy's inseparable bear, Ryan felt Maria discreetly squeeze his hand. They exchanged a knowing look, that silent communication they had developed over the months. Later, when most guests had already left and Lucy was showing her new telescope to 2 school friends who would sleep over, Ryan and Maria escaped to the small balcony. The place had become their private refuge, where important conversations happened, decisions were made, dreams were shared. Lucy seems so happy, Ryan commented, observing through the window as the girl enthusiastically explained the constellations she hoped to see. She's resilient, Maria replied. Sometimes I wonder if she even remembers the difficult times. She does. The other day she told me about the warm wall, and how she missed sleeping while looking at the stars. Maria smiled sadly. Some losses come with the gains, I suppose. Ryan nodded, understanding. Despite all the material improvements, there was a certain freedom, a certain direct connection with the world, that life on the streets provided and that couldn't be replicated in a secure apartment. That's why the telescope, he explained. So she can maintain that connection with the sky but in a different way. You think of everything, don't you? Maria touched his face affectionately. I try. Ryan hesitated, then took a small box from his pocket. Actually, I've been thinking about something for some time. Maria looked at the box, suddenly serious. Ryan. It's not what you're thinking, he said quickly. Or maybe it is, but not exactly. He opened the box, revealing a key. It's the key to the new house. New house? What new house? A house in Park Slope. With a garden for Lucy to plant the seeds she collects. Space for popcorn to run. An office for you to work on the foundation's projects. And, he paused, suddenly nervous, a room for me. If you want, of course. Maria stared at him, processing the information. Are you proposing that we live together? Officially? I'm proposing that we be a family. The way we already are, but without having to divide our time between two addresses. A silence settled between them, loaded with possibilities. In the background they could hear the laughter of Lucy and her friends. What if it doesn't work out? Maria finally asked, her old insecurity emerging. What if you get tired of us, of this life so different from what you had? Ryan held her hands. Maria, it's been a year. In that time, has there been any moment when you saw me regretful? Any moment when I preferred meetings to being with you? When I chose corporate success over our family? She shook her head negatively. Because it's not a choice for me, he continued. That Ryan, the sad man on the bench, as Lucy called me, doesn't exist anymore. Or rather, he evolved. And that evolution happened because of you, with you. Maria looked at the key, then at Ryan. We need to ask Lucy. Of course, he immediately agreed. It's a decision for the three of us. As if summoned by a silent call, Lucy appeared at the balcony door. Are you talking about me? I felt my ears getting hot. The adults laughed. We were indeed, Ryan admitted. I have an important question for you. He knelt to be at the girl's height. What would you think of the three of us living together? In a new house with a garden? Lucy looked from Ryan to her mother, then back to Ryan. Her expression was surprisingly serious for an 8-year-old child. Will you be my dad? Like for real? The question caught Ryan by surprise. He and Maria had decided not to pressure Lucy about this, letting the relationship between them develop naturally. I would love to be your dad, Lucy, if you want. But even if you don't want to call me that, I'll always be someone who loves you unconditionally. Lucy considered the answer for a moment, then smiled. I think I can call you Dad. You already do dad things anyway. And Eddie approves. Ryan felt a lump in his throat. Thank you. Eddie's approval means a lot to me. But the house has to have a warm wall, Lucy added seriously. So we never forget where we came from. Maria hugged her daughter, eyes shining with contained tears. We don't need a wall for that, sweetie. It's here. She touched the girl's chest. In our memories. In our stories. And in the new stories we'll create together, Ryan completed, joining the embrace. 3 months later they moved to the house in Park Slope. It was an old and spacious construction, with leafy trees in the garden and a privileged view of the sunset. Ryan and Maria opted for a simple ceremony at City Hall, with only a few close friends as witnesses. Lucy was the flower girl, leading popcorn, who carried the rings on a special little pillow. The New Beginnings Foundation grew, expanding its operations to other cities. Maria became a respected voice in the nonprofit sector, while Ryan balanced his work at Ameritech with an increasing involvement in social projects. Lucy, now a dedicated student and still an enthusiastic artist, made a point of regularly visiting the children served by the foundation, offering her friendship and creativity. On a starry night, as they observed the sky through the telescope installed in the garden, Lucy made an observation that perfectly captured the journey they had traveled. You know what I like most about stars? She asked, adjusting the focus of the instrument. What? Ryan and Maria asked in unison. They seem distant and alone, but they're actually part of constellations. Like us. Before, we seemed like separate stars, but now we form a constellation. Ryan embraced Maria, both amazed by the wisdom of that child who, a year before, had extended an awkward invitation to a sad stranger. You know what else? Lucy continued, still looking through the telescope. Some stars we see don't even exist anymore. But their light continues traveling through the universe, like the memories of the warm wall. Even when something ends, its light continues. Maria wiped away a discreet tear. When did you get so philosophical? Lucy shrugged. I guess I always was. I just needed someone who would listen. And there, under the starry New York sky, the improvised family that had formed from a casual encounter in Central Park contemplated the universe with the certainty that, sometimes, life's greatest treasures arrive in the most unexpected packages. A childish invitation. A warm wall. A sad man. A distrustful woman. A girl who saw beyond appearances. All the paths they had traveled, all the pains they had faced, all the barriers they had overcome, converged on that perfect moment of belonging. Not because destiny had determined it so, but because they chose, day after day, to build together something greater than their individual stories. And when Lucy finally fell asleep, with Eddie faithfully by her side and popcorn curled up at the foot of the bed, Ryan and Maria remained in the garden, hands intertwined, contemplating the same sky they had once observed from such different places. Thank you for that birthday invitation, Ryan whispered, recalling the folded paper with colorful marker that he still kept in a special box. Thank you for accepting it, Maria responded, resting her head on his shoulder. Above them, the stars continued their silent path across the firmament, eternal witnesses to how the simplest of gestures can trigger the most extraordinary of transformations.